So yeah, I went downstairs, and I had my Taurus Judge. I had it sitting under the couch because it's right by the front door, just in case anything happens. I had it sitting right by the front door under the couch, and I took it, and it had a shell loaded in it. And for those that don't know, trying to kill yourself with a shotgun round is probably the dumbest thing you can do, because because it sprays. It doesn't. It's not like a regular bullet where it just goes directly through the target. It blows shit up. It sprays, and it just explodes. That's why the Taurus Judge is so good for self-defense. That's why I got it after that hotel thing, because it makes it would have been the perfect thing to use in that situation where I was at in that hotel, where I was backed up against the wall with all those guys in front of me telling me to get in the room. Because what it does is it's just this little gun. It's a Taurus. Just look it up. It's a Taurus Judge, and it just fires a shotgun shell that just sprays, and like you got to be a fucking idiot to miss. So, and the thing is, it's really hard to shoot when you have that much adrenaline going through you. I speak from personal experience. You lock up. You very much lock up. Assuming you're even still in your body. My whole memory of that experience in the hotel is from like a foot away, looking back at myself. Like my body went so numb, and everything went so numb and quiet that they could have shot me with one of those guns, because two of them had guns, and I was ready to get shot. I was ready to get stabbed. I would have felt nothing. So I'm just letting you know, like, that level of adrenaline, it's really important to have a weapon that is really hard to miss with, because I don't care who you are, unless you really have that proper training and you've been through it a handful of times at least, you just can't you just can't function on that much adrenaline. So I went to or God, I can't remember the place. My uncle, he took me. He took me to the place. It was a shooting range place. He took me a long time ago, but that's where I went, and I got my license and everything, and I got a Taurus Judge, and I had it under the thing, and I went downstairs, and everything was closing in, and it wasn't just the chest pain anymore. It wasn't, because I can deal with the chest pain. I can deal with the chest pain at this point. It wasn't just my body. It was that my head at this point, I was feeling pressure in it, and it wasn't like it wasn't like a headache pressure. It was just like, it felt like my eyeballs were gonna pop out. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just felt like in my jaw and everything. And I don't know if I'm fucking up my jaw just from how hard I like chop when I rap. You know what I'm saying? But I tack it like a truck in the bike, jetpack in the backpack, but the right, what is that? How the hell are you singing since all the records I'm playing since 2010? I'm down to wicked the strange law. Remain raw, give you happy, your pain. All spit with the flame jaw, with the teeth of a chainsaw. You know what I'm saying? You gotta have a hard jaw for that shit. And that works out that muscle right there. It started to bother me a lot, and it was going up all the way around the back of my neck, and it was going up like to the top of my head, and eventually it just started going around my whole head, and I didn't want to be in it anymore. I didn't want to be in it anymore, and I've been so afraid of death up until that point that it was like that's the only thing that was keeping me in it, was my fear of what might be after this body. But it got to the point that it was so uncomfortable, and I was so uncomfortable in it that I just it was my desire to get out of it outweighed my fear of death, was where I was at. So I went downstairs, I grabbed it, I put it to my head, and I started singing the second verse of Eminem's Beautiful Pain. Like, I don't know why it came over me. It's just what happened. And then I was just gonna do it. But before, I don't know, I think I forgot it got very blurry from here. I think I forgot some lyrics or something, I don't know what happened, and I eventually collapsed on the floor. And my friend Owen, luckily I just heard my phone. That's weird, right as I said that. But luckily I had my phone in my pocket, and I was just sitting there on the fourth floor trembling, and I called my friend Owen, and I said, hey man, you got a second? Because he's going to college now and stuff, and I didn't want to bother him. And I was like, do you got a second? And he's like, yeah, I'm kind of busy right now with stuff. And I was like, when you get a second, can you just call me or something? I believe that's what I said. Anyway, long story short, he was at my door very quickly. He came over very quickly. I'm sure he could tell how distraught I was. We threw my gun away, and luckily that was a Sunday, the 29th, I believe. Because the next day was a Monday. which is when the trash comes and they take everything out. But now I kind of feel unsafe here without a weapon, so I don't even really know where to stand on that, because I still feel unsafe. I feel unsafe without a weapon here, but I would also feel unsafe having a weapon here, given that I felt that way that day. So I don't know where I'm at with that, but I don't have any projectile weapons here right now. So anyway, that's where I was at, and I called him up, and he came over, and I just cried and cried and cried, and I just all of everything that I've had to say about all of my anxiety, he just let me dump it onto him for hours. Just all of my fears and all the solipsism in my mom, and we actually found out it really does narrow down to my mom's death. Like, everything comes down to, because if you look at my videos from before when my mom died, everything from before my mom's death is I'm a regular teenager, you know what I'm saying? I was growing up, I was going through the motions, I was doing me. But after she passed and I moved into my apartment, it just went downhill from there. And then I started taking all the acid and mushrooms to try to find her again, because I don't know if you guys know this. I know I've told this story, but I don't know how in depth I've gone into it, because I don't want people poking holes in it, which is what YouTube commenters love to do. But I don't have much to hold on to when it comes to this kind of stuff. But my very first acid trip ever was the night my mom died, and I didn't know that. I didn't know she was dying that night. But it was me and JoJo. If you remember JoJo, there was a time that night where we were both sitting there. I've never experienced this again on acid or anything. We were sitting there and we were looking at each other. We just found ourselves during the climax, just sitting on the floor in my first apartment, just looking at each other. And when you're peaking that hard with another person, there's no need for verbal communication. It's all understood just looking at each other. But eventually he said, "Do you see that?" And I did. Yeah, like we were both seeing the same thing in front of us. It was just this orb of what I assumed to just be energy. I don't know what it was. It was barely visible, very clear, but you could just see the outline of it. And it was just this vibrating orb between us. And we were like, dude, eventually we were just sitting there just looking at it. And we were just looking at each other, and he looked up at me, he said, "Do you see that?" And I just said, "Yeah, I see that." And eventually we got up, and if you remember me telling my story about the LSD story, that's when I went to the fridge and I opened it up and I saw the orange juice and cried, because just thinking about all the stuff that the orange had to go through to get into my fridge and make it all happen. It was just, when you first take psychedelics, it opens your brain up to like so many things that you've never. I mean, it's nothing new really. It's just stuff that you don't know it until you know it. You know what I'm saying? You don't know until you know. Like, you know it, you're aware, you don't know. You know what I'm saying? I guess you don't if you haven't been there. But then after that, if you've seen my first apartment, I have a lot of videos of it. I had those two in my living room. I had those two couches sitting up next to each other, and we were sitting. Me and JoJo later that trip, after I was done crying about the orange juice, I was sitting off in the corner on one side of the couch, and he was sitting on the other corner. So the couches were like this, and I'm like, I guess it would be better to show you like this. Yeah, with like the coffee table right here. I'm sitting right here, and he's sitting right here, and just between us, and like right between us, we saw the orb again, and it like shocked us that time. We were like, whoa, what the fuck? And then I woke up the next morning, and I got a voicemail that my mom had passed, and I had to go pick up her stuff from hospice. And so ever since then, I did everything I could to just for that next like year and a half, I was just pounding myself with psychedelics, and it wasn't even just natural stuff anymore. I was doing MDMA, MDA, 5-methyl. I was doing just anything I could get my hands on. And you saw those videos from back then. I was out there, man. Like, I was just doing everything I could because I wanted that back. Because I felt what this all narrows down to, like I was saying, what we narrowed it all down to is I feel guilty for not being there for my mom's death.
because she was in hospice care, bro. That's where you go to die. They don't, when you go to hospice care, you're not there to get, fixed. I mean, if you do happen to miraculously start making a recovery, great. But they're not there to do that in hospice care. In hospice care, you're just there to die. So they're just there to dope you up and make it as painless as possible. They just dope you up with tons of fucking, opiates or whatever, and they make your death as easy as it can be. And I wasn't there for her. I never even visited her. In the hospice care.
And I have a lot of I have a lot of things that I could blame that on. At the time, I blamed it on the fact that she was so sick for so long, and I was so sick of being around it and being around this sick person for so many years and just watching her circle the drain. And she relapsed on heroin because of my stepdad. He got her to take heroin again while she was doing the cancer and stuff because she was that vulnerable. And I was just so sick and so angry at the whole situation and my stepdad for killing my mom, and I was so mad at it all. But I didn't even go and visit her. I didn't even go and see her, and I was her best friend. She said it all the time, that she said, "Travis, you're my best friend." And I never understood that until she was gone. I never understood, because that didn't make sense to me. How can you be 40 years old, or 50 years old by then, and your best friend is a 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid? But I didn't take into consideration that I was her son, and that nobody had stayed with her for that long. And she brought me into this world, man. She brought me into this world, and I wasn't there to escort her out. And I feel like that was my job. And I failed. I wasn't there, and I could have been. But instead, I was off getting fucking high and doing acid and shit because I wanted to be Mr. Terrence McKenna. I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. I thought it would be the coolest thing in the world to be like this acid guy. I thought it would be so cool to be this guy who's like out there and who knows all this like shamanic stuff about, psychonautics and all that. That's who I wanted to be. And I wasn't there for her. And she died alone. She must have been so scared that night, because I know my mom. And there's this song that Modest Mouse has. It's beautiful. It's called "The Ocean Breathes Salty." They have a line about how they say you missed when the world folded in on itself, and it's so true. I missed it. I wasn't there for when my mom went through it. I wasn't there for when her consciousness left. I was there for everything but it. I took care of her all the way up to that point. But after I finally got out of there and I had enough to support myself and I was able to just live on my own and get away from that sick person and just be my own person for once, I finally left the nest and I got my own apartment. I didn't even visit her. And she called me. She didn't call me. She sent me a cheesecake. You know that? That's the last thing my mom did for me. She sent me a cheesecake with a note, and she said, "I'd like to see your apartment. I'd like to see what you did. I think I'd be proud." And I said, "Yeah." I remember I called her. I thanked her for the cheesecake, and I said, because she couldn't deliver it herself, because she was at the hospital, but she got them to send me a cheesecake, and she wrote on a note that she wanted to come visit my apartment. And she never got a chance to because she died. And I think me and Owen sort of narrowed down that that's sort of what this all comes from. That's what it all stems from. Yes, at a certain level, the solipsism doesn't have anything to do with it, but it all built from there. That was the first stair. That was the first step in the staircase that I've been climbing up that got me to this point. And, it just got to that point. Hold on, I guess I can talk for a couple more seconds. Yeah, I just got to that point where I was ready to fucking just go. I didn't want to be in my body anymore. Hold on, I gotta go to the next video.